Welcome everyone back to the Flour+water Test Kitchen. My name is Ryan. I'm here to show you my favorite recipe for macaroni and cheese. So first step is I do need to heat up some milk. Basically what we're gonna be doing is what they call in French cuisine a bechamel. We're just gonna pop this on the heat. That bechamel sauce is gonna start with a roux. A roux is basically just a combination of flour and fat. The fat in this case being butter. And with this recipe, feel free to ad-lib. I'm gonna be making this kind of to my own taste, but if you have little ones at home and wanna omit or change ingredients, the whole idea here is that it's flexible. Think of it as a formula and not necessarily a script to work off of. So once my butter's started to melt, I'm just gonna add a little bit of flour to create that roux. This flour is gonna help thicken the sauce, but also stabilize when we add all of the cheese. The cheese has a ton of fat in it, and by having this little bit of flour in the beginning, it's gonna make sure that that fat from the cheese doesn't separate out and you're not left with this oil slick of macaroni and cheese. Stir, stir, stir. All right, so my roux has started to cook out. It's still fairly blonde, which we don't want a dark roux for this. All we're doing is cooking out that little raw flour flavor. We don't want to be left with that when the finished sauce is ready to roll. So once that's ready, I'm gonna grab my milk. Sorry, the milk's not ready. Wait for it. I'm gonna grab the milk, which is come up to just a bare simmer here. And I'm gonna slowly add the milk into the roux. If I do this all at once, that roux is gonna clump up. And then before this comes back up to a boil, I wanna season it with some salt. Remember, we're gonna be adding a bunch of cheese, so just a small amount of salt to begin with. You'll notice it's not sauce consistency. I want it thinner than sauce consistency because once we put all this delicious cheese into the mix, it's gonna tighten up. And then when we add the pasta, it'll kind of loosen back up for that perfect clean sauce consistency for the macaroni. And let's talk about cheeses. Today what I'm using, a little bit of aged Vermont cheddar, some smoked mozzarella, Parmigiano Reggiano, and mascarpone. The white cheddar is gonna give us that sharp, classic mac and cheese quality. Parmigiano Reggiano adds the salt, the smoked mozzarella, just gives it a little bit more depth of flavor. And then lastly is mascarpone. I'm gonna turn the heat off and continue to stir. I don't want this to scorch on the bottom, so by finishing it off the heat, it's gonna ensure that we're not caramelizing or burning any of the cheese. I like to do a little bit of fresh grated nutmeg. It's just gonna add that little something, a background flavor that really works well with this blend of cheeses. And then for heat, just a little bit of hot sauce here. Hot sauce is also gonna add just a touch of acidity, and also that little bit of heat is gonna help cut the richness as well. And then a generous amount of black pepper. My favorite pasta in Italy is Cacio e Pepe, which is just cheese and black pepper. And so whenever I make mac and cheese at home, I'm basically mimicking that flavor profile by using a generous amount of black pepper. For now, I'm gonna pop a lid on this and we'll focus on cooking the pasta. As always, we need to season our pasta water. 1/4 cup of kosher salt for every 4 quarts of water. And then for this recipe, I like to do a whole pound of the flour+water macaroni. The great thing about this pasta is how much texture it has on the outside, and it just grabs onto the cheese sauce. It's perfect for mac and cheese, and that's a texture you don't normally see in boxed macaroni. We're gonna give our pasta a little bit of a stir, just making sure that those noodles don't fall to the bottom, and also that they cook evenly. Stir, 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 stir. While our macaroni cooks, let's talk substitutes. Again, like if you have little ones at home that are used to that like bright yellow color from the boxed mac and cheese, there's nothing wrong with a little bit of sharp cheddar. The only thing I would avoid though is pre-shredded cheeses. They often use a little bit of an anti-caking agent, and that'll prevent the sauce from getting that like nice luscious creaminess. All right, so our pasta is cooked to the perfect al dente. It has resistance and toothsomeness, but it doesn't stick to the teeth. I'm gonna strain this through a colander, but before doing so, I'm gonna reserve a little bit of that salty, starchy pasta water in case I need to adjust the cheese sauce for that perfect consistency. So our macaroni is thoroughly drained. We're gonna add this to the cheese sauce. All right, so this is where it all comes together. That texture of the flour and water macaroni, it's really grabbing onto the cheese sauce. My sauce is a little thicker than I like, so I'm gonna add a little spot of that salty pasta water. For my taste, I'm going big on the black pepper again. And we're ready to serve. And we have an easy, delicious weeknight meal that the only thing that came out of a box was that beautifully textured flour and water pasta, the elbow macaroni shape.